G'day, this is Captainoob, and this is a Photon Disruptor. This is a weapon made by the Institute, and in the modder's headcanon, this is a weapon that the synths used before they even developed the Institute rifles, which are basically laser guns that shoot the blue lasers, but are inferior to the pre-war laser guns for some reason. Maybe they figured out the weapons are slightly better optimized that way, or something like that. Who knows? But anyways, it's a cool looking weapon, energy-based, of course. It's got a couple of animations, different sets of animations. So there's an animation set made for humans, one animation set made for humans with prosthetic robot cyborg limbs, and actual cyborg robot player animations, which I think are quite interesting. I might get back to those in a little bit, but for now, we'll take a look at this thing. It's got this cool foregrip. It's got this heat sink on the bottom, which is kind of reminiscent of the plasma gun in the game, and you'll see here when we get into the actual gameplay, it's kind of like a Tesla cannon because there's a little bit of electricity flowing around there, the photons, I guess, which aren't photons light? Never mind, I'm not a scientist, let's move on. First of all, we've got the capacitors, which you can have tuned, boosted, penetrating, interesting. Improved versions, boosted, overtuned, maximum, overcharged, and you can also have automatic versions of that. So we'll start off with an overcharged capacitor of the automatic variety, and we'll move on. Right now I've got a standard barrel. You can have a lightened version of that, which seems to just skeletonize the foregrip there to reduce the weight by absolutely nothing. And then you can also have an extended barrel, which will increase your range ever so slightly. The advanced barrels will increase your range again, and there's also light versions of those as well. And you can have extended barrels to get out that range a bit further going into advanced long barrels, which will give you a decent amount of range. It's actually quite high for what it is, and I don't mind that. Also gives you a little bit extra damage and a slight boost in accuracy as well. Requires Science Rank 3 and Gun Nut Rank 3, which is pretty high up there in terms of level, but we can move on to grips now, which you can completely take the grip off and use as a stock, or take the stock off and use the grip there. But in terms of recoil control, generally these ones will make the weapon slightly easy to control. And I've noticed when I've using like particular setups with this weapon, there's no recoil whatsoever. There's recoil in the animations of the weapon, but no recoil in pushing the muzzle around, which I think is interesting, because a lot of people, they don't like that there's laser gun recoil in the game because it's like turning on a flashlight, and there's no equal and opposite reaction to a laser that can disintegrate a guy. No, don't worry about that. But for now, we'll just ignore that and we'll go on to sights. So you can have alternate iron sights, glowing iron sights, glowing alternate, and you can have reflex sights, and goes into scopes here. This one being an automatic variant, I'm going to go for a reflex sight of the circle variety, just a little bit of a reflex on the top, kind of subtle, but that's what the customization is for this particular one. I'm going to create a couple more of these, show you how to get them, and then we can get started. Okay, I think I went over a mod slot completely. So you've got extra modifiers that you can attach to your Photon Disruptor, including a coil pack, which will just give you a bunch of extra damage, very useful. A combustor, which adds fire damage, which I'm guessing is just going to give you a bit of fire damage over time, like the incendiary legendary perk. A splitter, which will reduce your accuracy but split the beam into multiple projectiles. Potentially, if you've got a wounding version of these, you'll find that to be a particularly effective solution. Radiation gives you a tiny bit of radiation onto the gun. It's only useful against human targets that are actually susceptible to radiation. Basically, any legendaries that you find, you'll cut off their maximum health a little bit with this thing, so you can not have them gain as much health when they mutate, when they're legendary. A plasmator, which will increase your damage and adds plasma damage to the projectile. Doesn't seem to be adding all that much, to be honest. An energy repeater, which will increase the fire rate, so potentially useful on a automatic variant. And an RTG, which is a radio scope thermoelectric generator. Supplements fusion cells with increased ammo capacity. So more ammo capacity if you want to spray and pray for a little bit longer. So yeah, I missed that last time. We'll go for the coil pack on this one. This one is semi-auto with a long-ass barrel on it. A couple of options of getting these are just letting the level list drop them into your game where they are. Typically, you'll find them on synth units and possibly inside the Institute saw. But if the game detects that the Institute has been destroyed, you can also craft this on a workbench here, which requires these materials and absolutely nothing for the perks, which obviously, as the Institute is being destroyed, you're typically going to be a level to get all the science perks anyway, so I don't think that's too much of an issue, but something interesting to note nonetheless. This is the alternative reload for whether a player has synth arms. You just sort of twist it around sort of 90 degrees on your wrist there, so it doesn't look super ergonomic. But there you go. And lastly, here is the reload for a synthetic player. Yep, that's what it looks like. And again, thanks Cyberwinter, back in the cage now. Righto, so here we are outside of the immersive Gunners Plaza, and this is what the Photon Disruptor looks like in first person, with a nice chopping animation for the bashing. It's a rather large weapon in first person, sort of suits what the Institute rifle would become. That thing takes up like a whole quarter of your screen, and this is what it looks like in third person. I'm getting a lot of frame rate issues for some reason. Okay, now I'm not. That's weird. Also, you'll notice how, like I said before, there's like a Tesla cannon effect going on, and that'll actually rotate around as you fire, which I think is really cool. And there's a reload animation, bashing animation, pretty standard in third person as well. Now, you might think this weapon is too big, sort of bordering on heavy gunner type style, but I think that's just, maybe it's a nod to the size of the Institute rifles, but this thing's got power armor based animations as well. Are they shooting at me? No, they're not. It's odd. Just caught a few traces, but this thing would probably work pretty well in the hands of power armor as well, so they obviously designed it to accommodate for that, which I think is a great idea. And should I end up falling in battle, I will jump in a suit of power armor, because look, energy weapons in this game, they don't do a lot of damage just because of how damage is calculated, and I think we'll suffer from that a little bit. We'll try the best we can, but if we end up getting our asses kicked, then we'll come back in a suit of power armor. But to start off, we'll go for the most invisible point in the whole game, and we'll get started. Another thing that makes me think that this might be potentially heavy weapon status is that throughout all of that, there is no sniper knockdowns whatsoever. Not a single sniper knockdown despite all of these hits. And I'm going to reload in VATS here, use quick hands, because I don't want them moving and advancing closer. There we go, there's the first catch. First catch of the day, and as this gun is getting closer, we'll just VATS her in the face. So this one obviously has a scope, and you'll notice that the projectiles and tracers look a little bit different. That's because it's the plasma infused version. But I do want to pay close attention to what the projectiles look like normally, because I think they're pretty cool. And we'll go ahead and use this thing a little bit in VATS just to see them flying in slow motion. Maybe we'll get some nice close-up shots of the gunners being shot in the face, because even the impact itself leaves behind like almost holo rifle vibes of After Effects, which is great. But we are struggling for damage. We're going to use all of our criticals, and if this gunner doesn't die, then we've got problems. Not only that, I'm only carrying about 1,000 fusion cells into this, and if we can't kill all of the gunners at Immersive Gunners Plaza, well, I think we're not looking at endgame potential weaponry here. Well, that's a nice little bonus there. We get another 26 for free. So we're going to make sure we don't get shot by like a billion gunners at once, and sort of run here and sort of pick our battles more wisely. Okay, so let's talk about recoil for a second, because as you can tell, the weapon does bounce around a little bit, but if you decide to aim down sights, the muzzle does not move at all. It's going to stay dead straight, like you're pointing a flashlight. It's brilliant, so that means you can keep it relatively well on track when fighting enemies, which leads me to believe that possibly the way of running this thing is just trying to nail headshots with every single shot, because if you don't, then you're going to dump 2 to 3 mags into someone trying to kill them, and that's just not time efficient. Not to mention how many shots they get into you just because of the downtime and the amount of reloading. And if you don't get lucky with staggers, then you can land yourself in a whole lot of trouble. So what I'm thinking of doing is just baiting Nerd Rage and then just laser beaming a bunch of these guys all in a row. Let's use something else for a second though. This one here has a special charge up coil capacitor, which I've found if you choose, it's not a thing if you decide to choose a version with an automatic capacitor or an automatic barrel, so that's kind of weird, right? Anyways, we're ready for Nerd Rage. We'll pop a fresh mag in, activate it, because we can just get angry when we want to. We've got to psych ourselves up to it a little bit. And although we're not getting any significant damage bonuses as of yet, or right now, we may have timed out of getting those exactly. And hang on, get that reload. Hurry up. Yeah, this weapon's not gonna cut it. Okay, we are back and slightly differently dressed. We've got chrome-plated T60 Tesla power armor, and I've done this during the night, not only for the cool, possibly seizure-inducing light show of the armor itself, but so we can witness the cool light show that this weapon makes when it's all nice and dark. Stealthy power armor, you say? Good question. Here's the answer, by the way. Oof. 3.9 times multiplier, and how much do I get? 44. Well, it's something. I'll take that turret out. So, basically, I'm going to do the same thing I was doing before, but without the dying, perhaps. We've got a couple of them approach there. This weapon could really, really use some sort of sniper knockdown effect to it, because having her sort of charging at me whilst being shot with what is, I guess, a tickling laser pointer, it'd be nice if I got to stop her by just making her fall on her face, at least for the comedic effect of it all. And if you're wondering what this thing looks like with power armor, I think it works pretty well with the Tesla Legendary armor. And I think the automatic variant shoots faster in third person. That's like Gatling laser speed right there. And we can successfully kill a gunner provided we hit basically every single shot with one magazine, which is a big step above from 2, because I don't have to sit through a reload, which adds a significant amount of time to kill on the target. Very nice. It's kind of like using a Spider Walker's laser beam in the original Star Wars Battlefront, right? And except it just takes a whole lot longer to kill, because that was like a really rapid laser, but the damage was super high. That was fun. I feel like playing Star Wars Battlefront now. Okay, we're almost in a Nerd Rage now. I mean, it's taking us a long time to get down there, but I would like to reload, please. Thank you. We can shoot this thing in third person. Make sure we do short controlled burst. There's a mantis up my ass, don't worry about him. And we end up getting a little bit of that health back from that. Do I need to worry about that turret? Probably not. That Gunner Brigadier is currently targeting that mantis, which is okay. I might just keep that mantis around as an alternate target to shoot at. Although, if these gunners had half a brain, they'd target the power armor lady instead of the bug that probably can't jump through walls. We've also got a jetpack. That's pretty helpful. Let me just get myself under here and not get shot by every single gunner in the place. Go for a more 1v1 sort of playstyle here. And instead of sitting through this particular reload, I'll switch over to the shotgun version, which I think looks a lot more impressive in the dark of night. Even though the recoil is going to make this very hard to control, not to mention the... Oh, yeah, this is why I don't put splitters on energy weapons. Because it just doesn't cut it. Even the crits just do absolutely nothing. And again, this is the piercing capacitor there. Hope you like the reload animation, because it is getting a good run out today. Gotta wonder how close I am to the level up at this point. About 2/3 of the way there. It's not too bad. Let's just lock onto this guy's head. We are getting a couple 100 points of damage now. Maybe those necessary perks have loaded in. Nope. Okay, so whatever that was, that allowed us to get through that wall fired at just the right angle to penetrate that with the critical. This one looks killable, according to what Vats is telling me. And then the game crashes. Okay, I think you get the point though. Okay, so briefly back to the drawing board for a second. I was not able to get the power that I got through preliminary testing out of this weapon, so I'm going to get that same setup on this particular weapon, and we'll get that. So right now it's energy repeated, which is nice. 156 damage seems like a lot. It isn't, especially in very hard difficulty where we've got a 50% damage penalty before we factor in energy resistance from the enemies that we're shooting at. But if you choose a coil pack on that, you get 277, which is almost double. It changes it to semi-auto, but I mean, that's fine. Normally we'd have the normal semi-auto capacitor on this anyway, but if we do choose to chuck that on, it does 144. So if you throw on the overcharge auto capacitor and also chuck on the coil pack modifier, then you can actually get a decent amount of damage to this thing. So that's our last-ditch effort to actually get some work done with this thing. Alright, so we'll be going on the inside because honestly I've killed enough gunners for you to get an idea of what this thing is usually like. So if we can make some work get done here and we can finish off the inside of Gunner's Plaza, I'll be pretty happy. Now, the coil capacitor, as a reminder, does have a charge up thing. So if we use this thing in VATS, it'll be fully charged all the time, which will allow us to utilize all of that glorious damage. But even without utilizing that, I think we can still get some good work done with this thing. Nice Tech 9, buddy. That's cool. So yeah, if we just spam on the trigger, never mind, not this occasion because I had to reload. If I just spam on the trigger like you would fire some sort of rapid fire battle rifle thing, you'll find that the damage on this thing really isn't that bad. Perhaps not in third person. There we go. Much faster in first person. There's just a little bit of an animation delay in third person, so you might want to look out for that as you go along, but as you can tell, slightly more effective. Now, the only thing I'm sort of worried about in this particular section here is whether one of these bastards has a grenade launcher, because if they do, that guy just jumped right over the bullet. By the way, this is the DPS of this thing when I'm charging it up. So despite having like a lot less damage per shot when in comparison, we'll just shoot them as rapidly as we possibly can, and that'll actually do pretty well for damage. And honestly, that's basically the only way that I would consider running this thing. And maybe that's not the weapon's fault. Maybe it's just designed to be somewhat on the lower level side. Again, it is available at level 19, so it's probably not a weapon you want to carry past level 30. I wouldn't rate this over a vanilla game assault rifle, for example. A vanilla game assault rifle can kick ass if you know what you're doing with it. For reasons which I'll explain now. Good mag capacity, very low recoil, and the DPS is quite nice. You can suppress it too. Any automatic suppressible weapon you'll find is a pretty potent weapon in Fallout 4 and would go on to be 76 as well. But even so, the assault rifle has problems. It's not the most pretty thing, and the reload animation is just a little bit odd. It's meant to be some sort of LMG looking thing. It's made for power armor hands, which I think this weapon can relate to, but you know, taking on a vanilla amount of gunners with this thing, with it powered up to be as it is now, it can do the job, but it's definitely not an endgame solution. So maybe use this when you see them, and then you'll probably find something more advanced in the energy weapons as you get towards level 30, and you'll start maybe finding some plasma rifles and other plasma guns around. But I think I'm going to leave things there. I'm not going to bother fighting a monster with this. I think you get the idea regardless. So that there was the Photon Disruptor. Download it if you feel like you're starting a new game and you want to use a cool high-tech institute weapon to kill foes in kind of cool fashion. It's a very good-looking weapon, just kind of wasted being sort of held back to such a low level where you can't use it as an endgame sort of rifle, because most of the time you will be playing endgame because you're not here forever. You're not level 19 forever. The gap between level 19 and 20 is not as much as you think, and you'll find this weapon sort of gets obsoleted fast. But I can respect a mod author to say that this is where it's for, and it'll be effective until this time. But again, it kind of sucks that I just can't really utilize it to its full potential at an endgame sort of level, because I reckon it'd be cool to use to run around with. But that's just my thoughts. Thank you very much for watching, guys. Links in the description if you want it.